from West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Live from West Virginia Public Broadcasting, good morning. I'm Beth Voorhees. We're bringing you coverage of the floor sessions of the House and Senate from the state capitol in Charleston. There are cameras in the chambers now that allow floor sessions to be video streamed live on the web. And thanks to this new technology, West Virginia Public Broadcasting can now telecast the proceedings directly from the Capitol. This special broadcast is an experiment to see what this new technology holds for us here at West Virginia Public Broadcasting and for you, our audience. We're waiting for the House to gavel in with Speaker Tim Armstead at the podium. The House has 7 bills on third reading. They have 11 bills on second reading and 15 bills on first reading. We have a 2-hour window here, and we'll try to bring as much of the House or Senate floor sessions as we can in this 2-hour window. It is 11 a.m. and so far the House has not gavelled in. It's not unusual at this time in the session. Committee meetings are very busy with a lot of bills on their agenda, and sometimes it takes a while for those committees to adjourn and for the delegates or the senators to make their way to the chamber to prepare for the floor session. So it's not unusual. While the House and the Senate for most of the session has gavelled in right at 11 a.m., it's not unusual at this point. It's very busy, so we will take a few moments here just to allow them to gather and gavel in. If you would like to reach out to us during this special broadcast, you can get on Twitter and use the hashtag WVLegis. That's hashtag WVLEGIS, and we'll be able to see your tweet. And if you'd like to comment on what we're doing here, if you have a question regarding the legislative process, want to reach out to us in any way, go right ahead. The Senate has 6 bills up for passage today, and they have 36 bills on second reading. That's the amendment stage on the Senate floor. That's a very, very long list, and we understand the Senate will meet this morning and take as much business as they can, and then they'll split sessions and probably go back in tonight. Some of the bills coming up in the House, once they gavel in, and they do a lot of formalities. We'll get to that in just a minute. But up for passage on third reading in the House today, House Bill 2457, prohibiting the use of the name or likeness of elected or appointed officials on publicly owned vehicles. There's also the West Virginia Small Business Capital Act, that's House Bill 2615. There's House Bill 2662, the Eye Care Consumer Protection Law, requiring that those licensed to write prescriptions for contact lenses and glasses are actually involved in the prescription process. At each of these bills, you will see the committee chair in the House who has worked the bill, described the bill to his or her colleagues, so you will get an idea of what this bill is about. Again, we are waiting for the House and Senate to gavel in for the morning's floor session. Once they do, a lot of formalities have to be undertaken before the House and Senate actually do get down to business. They have to read, correct, and approve the journal. They'll introduce guests, which can take some time depending how many people are at the Capitol. It's always an honor to have people from your districts visit the Capitol and you want to introduce them to your colleagues. You'll also hear communications from, say, the House of Delegates to the Senate, or the Senate communications to the House. These are bills that have been passed by one chamber and have been reported to the other chamber. They also might get a message from the executive, that's Governor Tomlin, with any action that he's taken about a certain bill. We see that the West Virginia Senate President Bill Cole is at the podium, but they are still taking their time before they actually gavel in. And the House still has not. Now, one technological note I want to give you before we get started here. When the Senate President or the House Speaker turns off his microphone, the chambers go silent. Just a heads up here, there's nothing wrong with the audio or the feed from the Capitol or your television or the computer. That's just the nature of how audio works on the floors. We see that House Speaker Tim Armstead has taken the podium and he looks like he's ready to gavel in. So let's go to the House, where they will open with the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance and then get down to business.
We called it Three Singers and Marty. Your part. You, Woody, and Anna. I mean, we virtually went in there and sang through it once. That's beautiful. I'm glad. Well, you know, somebody put the kibosh on that a few years ago, and I didn't know if it was Rick. I didn't know who. Okay. You remember how much I shook the first time I
The golden elixir. Is that what it is? The golden elixir.
We're live right now, so I don't know if it's on. It's broadcasting now. Someone has.
House will be in order. All those not having privileges to the floor will please vacate the chamber. Members and guests in the gallery will please rise as we are led in prayer today by Pastor Jared Belcher. Pastor Belcher is the guest of the gentleman from the 20th, Delegate Markham.
Let us pray. Our most gracious, kind Heavenly Father, we come to you today thanking you, Lord, for this time and this place, Lord, in which we have come together. We thank you for our leadership here, Lord. And we come to you invoking your presence in your name because, Lord, we are but fallible men and women, and we are but sin-stained, and we need your guidance and your direction. And we thank you for all these leaders that you've given us, Lord, knowing, Father, that they need to do your will, Father. And we ask that you might guide them and direct them in all that they do. Lord, we pray that you'd guide our state, that you'd have compassion upon us, that you'd open your hands toward us, that you'd give us, Lord, not only provision but prosperity. Lord, that you'd give us health and long life in the land. Most importantly, we ask for the outpouring of your Holy Spirit upon us, for we need that more than anything. Again, be with us, guide us, protect us. In all this we ask in the great and precious name of Jesus Christ, our Savior. And amen.
Amen. Members and guests will please remain standing as we are led in the Pledge of Allegiance by the gentleman from the 20th, Delegate Markham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the guests in the gallery will join us as we say the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Reading of the Journal.
Journal of the House of Delegates, Charleston, Monday, February 23rd, 2015.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 21st, Delegate White.
Chair did a great job.
Gentleman from the 58th, Delegate Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and it be approved as having been read.
The gentleman from the 58th asks unanimous consent the further reading of the journal be dispensed with and it be approved as having been read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Journal be approved as having been read. Gentleman from the 58th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today we have a citation presentation recognizing the state high school hockey champions of Lindsley Institute. To accept the citation, we have Lindsley Institute, whose headmaster Justin Zimmerman and coach C.J. Wilcox, and coaches and players of the championship team. They're escorted to the well of the chamber by Delegates Storch and Fluharty.
Clerk will please read the citation.
Whereas the Lindsley School hockey team finished their 2014-2015 season winning their third consecutive West Virginia State Hockey Championship, and whereas the Lindsley School hockey team earned the 11th annual Bob Otten Trophy after defeating Wheeling Park with a score of 7-3, and whereas the Bob Otten Trophy was established to honor the dedication and vision of Mr. Bob Otten, who co-founded the Wheeling Amateur Hockey Association, and whereas Captain Caden Cook acquired the Most Valuable Player Award during the championship game, and whereas the Lindsley Hockey Program offers a development program for players of all ages and all skill levels while offering a competitive schedule which includes an annual tournament, a conference championship tournament, and a chance to compete for the state championship. And whereas the head coach is Stephen Bernaire and the assistant coaches are C.J. Wilcox and Brad Wilson. And whereas the efforts and remarkable success of the Lindsley School hockey team, its coaches and players must not go unnoticed. Therefore, the House of Delegates of the West Virginia Legislature hereby applauds the Lindsley School hockey team and hereby directs this citation be presented in their honor.
Members will please be at ease a few moments so I may formally present the citation. Introduction of guests. The lady from the 43rd, Delegate Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate Hartman and me from the 43rd District, we have several individuals paging with us today. So if you'll listen to the individuals, they've come from a long way. We have paging from Pocahontas County. We have Taylor Tegmeyer, and he's accompanied by his mother, Tricia. If she would please stand. And we also have Brandon and Amanda Burns paging with us from Pocahontas County, and they are accompanied by Mike and Connie Burns from Pocahontas County. Then we have Jacob Davis, who is from Arlington Middle School from Pocahontas County, and he is accompanying also with the Burns. And then we have Lexi Gibson from Randolph County, and she's accompanied by her mother, Christy Van Devener. If she would stand, and if the house would please make them all feel welcome.
Lady from the 18th, Delegate Sabonia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today for Library Day, on behalf of our Cabell Wayne delegation, in the rear gallery we have representatives from the Cabell County Library. If they would stand to be recognized, the librarian, Judy Rule, my beautiful cousin, Brianna Roach Bowen, Sarah Ramonzi, Sarah Daughtery, and David Owens. If they would stand in the house, please make them feel very welcome.
The gentleman from the 10th, Delegate Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the delegates from Wood County, Delegate Anderson, Border Shepherd, Dean, Azinger, and myself, I'd like to welcome 3 pages that we have down here. We have today AJ, Jacob, and Jessica Connie, and their mother is sitting in the North Gallery. Leisha, would you all please stand and the House make them welcome? Thank you.
The gentleman from the 1st, Delegate McGeehan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today we have with us some constituents from the Fighting First District up in Hancock County, members of the Mountaineer Park Horsemen's Benevolent Protection Association. They are in the North Gallery, I believe. We have Jennifer Johnson, please stand, Jamie Poole, Janet Tetrault, and John Baird. Would the body please make them feel very welcome?
Gentleman from the 6th, Delegate Romine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pleased to have with me today 2 hardworking librarians from Doddridge County, Kathy Ash and Edwina Bailey, and I believe I see also seated up there the Speaker of the House in the Romine household, my wife Elizabeth. So make them welcome, please.
Gentleman from the 17th, Delegate Rohrbach.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to have with me a page today, Caleb Morgan, and in the rear gallery is his father, who would stand up and be recognized, Mark Morgan. If the House would please make them welcome.
The gentleman from the 28th, Delegate Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate O'Neill and me, we have visiting from Summers County today 4 very special students. Tiffany Elliott, if she would stand up in the North Gallery, Denise Pikaki, Austin Kessner, and Marissa Green. They're part of our adult basic education program being taken care of down at the library in Summers County. And with them is Shalom Taswell, if she would stand up. And I see to her right a Miss Ferguson that I just met a moment ago, if she would stand. Those folks are all in our adult basic education program there in Summers County, ran at our library by Myra Ziegler and again, Shalom Taswell. Please make them welcome.
The gentleman from the 42nd, Delegate Amber.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate Canterbury and myself, we have from Greenbrier County today 5 librarians, and as they please stand, Carol McClung of Rupert, Debbie Goddard of Raynell, Joanne Hortzel of White Sulphur, Rose Kirby of Alderson, and Ann Farr of the Greenbrier. And would the House please make them feel welcome?
The lady from the 3rd, Delegate Storch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the South Gallery, I have my son Seth and his hockey teammates Brian McKenzie, David Corum, Clemens Reitmeyer, their coaches CJ Willix, and their headmaster Justin Zimmerman, who've come down today for the floor presentation. I would ask if they please stand in the House, make them welcome.
The gentleman from the 38th, Delegate Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I noticed in the West Gallery that we have some representatives from the Kanawha County Library System here. If they would please rise, Alan Engelbert and some associates. If the House would please make them welcome.
Gentleman from the 66th, Delegate Espinosa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of my colleagues, Delegates Skinner and Upson, pleased to recognize in the South Gallery Mr. Joseph Hankins, Vice President of the Conservation Fund. Joe, if you'll please stand. Joe, in addition to being Vice President of the Foundation, he also serves as Director of the nationally renowned Freshwater Institute. Will the House please make him welcome?
Gentleman from the 16th, Delegate Hornbuckle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today in the South Gallery, we have with us Mary Gill. Would you please rise? On behalf of the delegates in the 16th District, I would like for our body to make her feel welcome. She's from the AARP and works hard every week at the Capitol.
Lady from the 25th, Delegate Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate H.K. White and myself, we have from the Wyoming County Library System, we have Carolyn, and from the Hanover branch, we have Rachel. If they would please stand and the House make them welcome. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 3rd, Delegate Fluharty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate Storch, Delegate Farrow, and myself, we have in the gallery today from the Ohio County Library, Dottie Thomas, and from the Marshall County Library, Susan Rowley. I'd ask that they stand in the House to make them feel welcome. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 30th, Delegate Bates.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. On behalf of all the delegates from Raleigh County, I'd like to welcome in the South Gallery some students from St. Francis de Sales School that are here attending the Youth in Government seminar this week. Zinnia Tran and Stephanie Warvel, they're here, and then they're accompanied by Ms. Margaret Dilley, who is the 7th grade teacher, and we need to pray for Ms. Dilley. She's the homeroom teacher to my son in the 7th grade, so we welcome them here. Please make them feel welcome.
Gentleman from the 20th, Delegate Markham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate H.K. White and myself, we want to welcome numerous pages from Williamson K-8, Leah Banks, Megan Christian, McKenna Griffin, Alexis Ramsey, Braden Grace, Megan Ball, Megan Griffey, Josiah Hatcher, Grace Bevins, Elijah Pidman, Trista Markham, Aiden McCoy, and Kaylin Wallace. And they're accompanied by their parents and teachers. If they would stand in the House, make them welcome.
Gentleman from the 29th, Delegate Moy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of all the delegates representing Raleigh County, we are very honored today to have with us several students with the Youth in Government program in the South Gallery. And as I call your names, if you will, please stand and wave for everyone. From Beckley Stratton Middle, we have Alexandria Bailey and Lakin Griffith. From Park, we have Hunter Tolliver. From Independence, we have Madison Deck, Seth Hughes, and Tristan Sears. And Tristan comes over my house a lot. I'm sure it's not to see my daughter, though. And from Shady Spring Middle, we have Jacob Anderson and Caitlin Cox. From Trap Hill, we have Robert Harris and Logan Bauer. And they are chaperoned by Dawn and Sarah Anderson. Would the House please make them welcome?
Gentleman from the 4th, Delegate Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the West Gallery, we have our Commissioner from Marshall County, Bob Miller. So on behalf of Delegate Fair and myself, if you would make him welcome.
Further introductions. Reports of standing committees.
Chairman Pasden, your Committee on Education has had under consideration House Bill 2840, providing an alternative.
All right, while they're
plan to make
taking
up
committee
lost days.
reports, let's go over to the State Senate where they are going to name some bridges and also make some floor speeches. Let's move over to the State Senate.
Standard. The Senate version of the bill contains some reallocation language when you had a defendant who was insolvent or unable to pay the damages based on the share of liability attributed to him or her. The House version had no reallocation language. We adopted basically the Senate version of the bill. There were a couple other minor changes. The modified comparative fault standard now is adjusted slightly. Under the law as it will be, after this is adopted, if signed by the governor, then a plaintiff will not be barred from recovery if his or her negligence equals 50%. Did I say that right? It will continue to, he'll be continued to be barred from recovery if his negligence exceeds 50%. And that's a slight change from the current law. Current law is plaintiff is barred if his negligence equals or exceeds 50%. So the difference as it plays out in cases and what juries might do is if a jury decides between a plaintiff and a defendant that the liability is 50-50, under this bill the plaintiff would be able to recover where under current law he cannot. There were a couple other minor changes. We changed some language in this regarding felony. There was a limitation and exclusion from the ability to recover when a plaintiff is engaged in felonious activity when he or she is injured. And so we've added language in the conference committee report that requires that the plaintiff is barred if the plaintiff has been convicted of such felony or if deceased, the jury makes a finding that the decedent committed such felony. Largely, it is the Senate bill with a couple very minor changes. So I'd be happy to answer any questions from the membership, but I would urge adoption of the conference committee report and passage of the bill.
The senator from Morgan moves that the committee conference report be taken up for immediate consideration, put upon its adoption. Is there discussion? Senator from Marshall with the
Thank you, Mr.
Senator
President.
from
Would the
yield.
senator from Morgan yield?
Yes,
Senator
sir.
Yields.
I'd be happy to.
So as I understand it, the bill has a bar any engaging in any felony. Is that right? If there is a felony, that it would be serve as an absolute bar from recovery?
Under the bill as contained in the conference committee report, it is if convicted. Let me find you the exact, it's on the last page. Here we go. Plaintiff's involvement in a felony criminal act and a civil action defendant is not liable for damages that the plaintiff suffers as a result of the negligence or gross negligence of a defendant if such damages arise out of plaintiff's commission, attempt to commit, or fleeing from the commission of a felony criminal act. And the conference, that was our bill as it passed the Senate. And in conference, we added the proviso that the plaintiff has to have been convicted of felony, or if the plaintiff is deceased, the jury makes the finding.
So it requires a conviction that occurs prior to the civil trial. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So it would not apply if somebody writes a bad check, for instance, to Lowe's or somewhere, and they don't have enough money in the bank and buy a bunch of plywood, and they're hauling it away, and the check's no good, and someone runs a red light and runs through them and kills them. That would not prohibit them from bringing the suit because they may have written a felonious check or a check where there was insufficient funds on account?
Well, I don't think so. Let me read that language to you again. It says, if such damages arise out of the plaintiff's commission, attempt to commit, or fleeing from the commission of a felony criminal act. So certainly in your hypothetical, it would not be damages incurred or occasioned during the commission or attempt to commit. I don't know that it would fit under fleeing either. So I don't think in the senator's hypothetical that would bar recovery.
That's the question I had. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question is on the adoption of the motion by the senator from Morgan. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. I declare the motion adopted. The question now is on the adoption of the Committee of Conference report. Is there discussion? If not, the question is on the adoption of the Committee of Conference report. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare the report adopted. Question now is on the passage of the bill as amended by the Committee of Conference report. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine.
Comparative fault. It's one of the Senate has just voted on House Bill 2002. This is the comparative fault bill. It was one of the major pieces of tort reform legislation that was on the Republicans' agenda for this session. Now back to the Senate.
Has every member voted? If so, clerk close machine, ascertain the results. On this question, 28 yeas, 6 nays, 0 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present having voted in affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
This bill will cover all public officials as defined in the Ethics Act, which is state, county, and municipal officials. The section does not prohibit, however, public officials.
We're going back to the House delegates now. They are working their third reading bills. They're now discussing. Delegate Lane is describing the bill prohibiting the use of a name or likeness of elected or appointed officials on publicly owned vehicles. Let's listen in.
This section does not prohibit a public official from using public funds to communicate with constituents in the normal course of their duties, so long as such communications do not include any reference to voting in favor of the public official in an election. Finally, this bill sets out certain exceptions to the section and permits the West Virginia Ethics Commission to promulgate rules. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage.
The lady from the 18th, Delegate Sabonia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would be remiss if I did not stand and rise in support of this bill to end shameless self-promotion at taxpayer expense. And it's a sad state of affairs when it takes state law to prohibit such practices. When I was a freshman, I was elected in 2002 by the people of my district, and my first legislative session was in 2003. And it was my freshman term that I was driving into the state capitol and I saw a billboard, and it was from a statewide office holder. And it said, "Ripped off?" ? Call, listed the person's name, their phone number, and wanted people to call for consumer protection. And I thought, yeah, you know what? I am ripped off. I'm ripped off from the shameless self-promotion of promoting someone's name at taxpayer expense. Therefore, in my freshman term, I introduced House Bill 4095, and it was introduced on January 21st, 2004. And this is 2015, 11 years later. I'll point out that I've waited for this day, Mr. Speaker, and I saved this editorial from the Herald-Dispatch, which is a newspaper in my district, and it's the headline of the editorial said, "Sabonia takes on political tradition." And it starts out saying, "There must not be enough snowballs and you know where to suit 4 members of the West Virginia House of Delegates." And they were referring to a bill that I also have sponsored as a carryover bill for the same number of years that would prohibit the naming of any publicly funded building, road, or structure or project after a living public official. And it goes on to say, Sabonia also said this particular bill goes a long way with another bill she is co-sponsoring, and it listed that bill number from several years ago, that would prevent state officials from putting their names or photos on vehicles, promotional materials, public service announcements, or similar materials paid for with state money. And again, it ends, it says, "Nice sentiments, but given West Virginia's political traditions, do Sabonia's bills or the proverbial snowball stand a better chance?" There is a clear difference between taxpayer-funded trinkets and privately paid. And I'll just show you a few samples: pill boxes, pencils, pens. Those are paid for with taxpayer money, and quite frankly, these cannot be used by the next office holder who comes in afterwards. They're obsolete. If they just had the person's office and the phone number, there would be no problem, but they have to be thrown in the garbage, which taxpayers have funded. The Goldwater Institute report, and it's entitled Shameless Self-Promotion, How Politicians Use Your Money to Get Reelected. And in this report, it revealed how Arizona public officials spent $4 million in public funds between 2006 and 2008 to showcase their name and image in publications, billboards, and television. Mr. Speaker, shameless self-promotion adds up. We might say, well, it's not that much money, but every dollar of the taxpayer money should be defended. I want to thank the subcommittee, our chairman of judiciary, interestingly put together a subcommittee that was evenly split with 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats. And in the bipartisan fashion, we were able to put forth this bill that's before you today. And Mr. Speaker, I strongly urge support of this bill. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 56th, Delegate Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Gentleman yields.
Happy to.
Well, I think this is a great bill. I do have a question. On the final page in Section D, it says, as long as such communications do not include any reference to voting in favor of a public official in an election.
If you would like to send a letter to your constituents and advocate that they do not vote for you, I think that is permitted under the language before you.
Might not do that, probably wouldn't do even what I'm going to ask, but would that prevent that, would that official be allowed to send a letter saying vote against another elected official?
Well, to the gentleman, I think that based on the language before us, that would not be prohibited. That's correct.
Well, we may wish to say something to the Senate on that. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 19th, Delegate Perdue. The gentleman yields.
Delegate, the issuance of press releases 45 days before an election, is that considered disallowed?
If the gentleman would refer to subsection C, that discusses using your name or likeness on any official record, report, letterhead, document, or certificate or instructional material issued in the course of their duties as a public official. And so I think that a press release that's issued in the normal course of your duties, if you're informing the public about an issue that's before us, that would fall within the exception. If, however, the commission looks at the factual scenario that, for example, I, as a member of the House, have sent out maybe 3 press releases in 11 years, and all of a sudden, 45 days before the election, I send out 2 a week. I think that is a factual scenario which would probably pierce that subsection C.
That's precisely where I was headed. Thank you, sir.
Are there other members desiring to speak to passage of the bill? Not the question before the House, is the passage of the bill. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, 99 ayes, 0 nays, 1 member absent not voting. Majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2457.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title was read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Further bills.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2493 relating to requirements for insurance policies and contracts providing accident and sickness insurance or direct health care services that cover anti-cancer medications.
To the members, this bill was advanced to third with a restricted right to amend. Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced, read third time.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2493.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 27th, Delegate Ellington, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill prohibits an insurance plan from charging higher co-payments, deductibles, or co-insurance for oral anti-cancer medications compared to an injection or intravenously administered anti-cancer medications. This change will go into effect on policies or contracts that are renewed or issued after January 1st, 2016. The bill also provides for a cost containment process. In order for that process to be applicable, an insurance company must show to the insurance commissioner that the company's cost of compliance exceeds 2% of the total cost of coverage per an experience period. If that occurs, then that company may institute cost containment measures to maintain costs below that 2% threshold of total cost of coverage. This change does not apply to catastrophic plans or a higher deductible plan until after deductibles are met. I urge passage.
Are there further members desiring to speak to passage of the bill? The gentleman from the 35th, Delegate McCuskey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in support of this bill, and if you'll indulge me for just a moment, I don't believe that I have experienced more or less loss than anybody from cancer, but I have experienced it, and I've seen what this disease can do to families and what it can do to those who are surrounded by those who are affected by the disease itself. And I think that what this bill here does is it seeks to help ease the burden not only on the patient but on the families who are surrounded by that person, those who are trying to provide that person comfort and trying to provide each other comfort in what are decidedly very, very difficult times. And I'm really proud that this bill has made it to the floor. I'm really excited that we're going to get to vote on it because I think it's really an example of how legislation can and should work. I think this was the identification of a problem, a specific need. This was the coming together of people who had an interest in it. This would being insurance companies and patient groups and cancer groups. These are all the people who had an interest in this, and everybody found a way to make sure that this worked, to assume that everybody had everyone else's best interests at heart, to assume that every delegate here looks at a problem and says, I want to help the people of West Virginia. And I think that's what this bill is an example of. I'm really, really proud to be a member of this body as we vote on this bill. I hope that everyone will vote for it, and I hope that it helps to provide some measure of comfort and help to those who are experiencing what we all know can be the worst of times in a person's life, and show them that this body can actually identify those problems and help to make them a little bit better. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 1st, Delegate McGeehan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Gentleman yield. Gentleman yields.
This bill does prohibit insurance companies from raising copays on certain medications. Is that correct?
That's exactly what it does. But its intent and what it seeks to do is to ensure that regardless of the way in which a cancer medication is provided to the patient, it is covered under the same insurance provisions.
Because this did go through the minor committee on banking and insurance, right? And we reviewed that.
That's correct.
And someone representing the introduction of the bill did state in committee that there was prohibition language when I read it that said an insurance company could not raise copays on these certain class of anti-cancer medications. Is that
And I presume that is accurate, and I'm trying to give you as broad of an answer as possible because it is
right.
Insurance contracts are incredibly complicated.
In your opinion, though, will this potentially raise premiums statewide on health care insurance?
The evidence that I have received from those who are the providers indicates that the answer to that question is no. It is not impossible. Nothing is impossible in a marketplace, but that this will not have that effect.
Because it did seem in banking and insurance, I posed that question, and the answer was, yes, that's a possibility.
And I think the answer to your question is anything is possible. So the answer is yes, it is possible.
Okay.
But the evidence indicates that it will not.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there further members desiring to speak to passage of the bill? Gentleman from the 50th, Delegate Manchin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This, in fact, is a very, very good bill, and it is good for God's children in the state of West Virginia, because from this day forward, people who need to have cancer treatment at home will not be penalized for not having gone into an expensive hospital to get that cancer treatment. It is a good bill. I urge adoption. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 17th, Delegate Rohrbach.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a physician, I rise in strongest of support for this bill. And I'll echo what my colleague from Marion County just said, and I'll give you a little medical background on this. As medicine is progressing and moving forward, intravenous cancer medication is rapidly becoming a thing of the past. It's obviously expensive, but it's all going to oral-based therapy. So all this bill is really doing is giving the cancer patient the same benefits that they're currently getting, and actually they're getting it at home, and it's much more cost effective for the state and the insurance company. So I urge strong passage of this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Are there further members desiring to speak to passage of the bill? If not, the question before the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has each member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On the question, 97 ayes, 2 nays, 1 member absent not voting. Majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2493.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Further bills.
House Bill 2615, West Virginia Small Business Capital Act.
Chair recognizes the lady from the 16th, Delegate Miller, to explain the bill.
Mr. Speaker, this bill makes crowdfunding available to West Virginia's small businesses. It authorizes West Virginia businesses to sell up to $1 million of securities per year to West Virginia investors without registering the securities under Chapter 32 of the West Virginia Code. Issuers under this exemption remain subject to the Code's provision about misleading filings, criminal penalties, civil liability, and fraud. In order to qualify for this new state law exemption, issuers must also qualify for the intrastate sales exemption that exists under federal law. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage of the bill.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question before the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor will vote aye. For what purpose does the gentleman from the 51st Delegate Kirchhoff seek recognition?
I want to request Rule 49.
Okay. Gentleman may state his request.
I'm not 100% sure this would apply to me, but I do work in the securities business, and I can't see that one of these would actually come across my desk as a sales item, but I do want to mention that since I do work in that industry, that it may be possible that I could see something like that.
To the gentleman, based on the facts you have stated, it is the ruling of the chair that you would be a member of a class to the extent that you would be affected under the bill and therefore be directed to vote. Gentleman from the 63rd, Delegate Folk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentlelady yield?
The lady yields.
Yes, I will.
Just a quick question. Does this apply to all corporate entities, whether it be LLCs, sub-C corporations?
It's a good question. Would the gentleman who proposed the bill like to speak to this?
Oh.
It just has to be a for-profit entity.
So the answer would be yes? I think I got the answer. Thank you.
Yes.
Lady from the 25th, Delegate Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentle lady yield?
Lady continue to yield. Lady yields.
I'm assuming that both sets of corporations have to be, or companies, have to be in-state companies, whether they're lending or they're borrowing?
Yes, and 80% of the business has to be with other West Virginia entities.
Okay, so it could not be some company that is incorporated out of state but has business offices in
Order of business as the Senate may.
We want to check in with the Senate right now. We understand that charter schools is being put onto first reading. Let's listen into the Senate as they discuss charter schools. Big news about that yesterday.
Yeah.
We want to check in with the Senate here because, of course, yesterday in the Senate Finance Committee, Minority Leader Senator Jeff Kessler made a parliamentary motion that essentially killed the bill in the Senate Finance Committee. We're getting word here from our reporter on the floor, Ashton Mara, that it is come up. The charter schools maneuver has just come up on the floor. There were a few words from Mr. Kessler about that. They are obviously convening on the at the Senate President's podium there to discuss what is going to be done with the charter schools bill that was killed in committee, but nothing is ever dead until the clock strikes midnight. And then, even then, legislative issues and bills are not quite dead. So we'll keep an eye on what the Senate is doing here. They are conferring at the podium. In the meantime, the West Virginia Small Business Capital Act did pass in the House, and now they are talking in the House about a bill allowing authorized entities to maintain a stock of epinephrine auto-injectors to be used for an emergency. But let's stick with the Senate here and see what develops regarding the charter schools bill. Let's go to the Senate. All right, we are still in the West Virginia Senate where there is a podium conference going on. We saw the Judiciary Chair, Senator Trump there. We see the Minority Leader there. We see the clerk there and others there. And obviously a discussion about what to do with this charter schools bill. We understand from Ashton Mara that it's been placed on first reading. So there is a mystery here, and we will stick with it here until we find out the end. So bear with us as we want to stay in the West Virginia Senate to see what unfolds.
Question for the Senate is the adoption of the motion that the Committee on Finance be discharged from further consideration of committee substitute for Senate Bill 14 and the bill be placed on first reading. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The bill will be placed on first reading. State your point.
Ruling of the chair and ask that the yeas and nays be taken.
All right, mystery solved. It seems the Senate Finance Committee has been discharged from considering the charter schools bill, and it's going to be reported directly to the floor and be placed on first reading. There was a voice vote to accept that motion. However, Senator Kessler, who made the motion yesterday about the charter schools bill, is making a motion that there be a roll call vote on it. And so now they're going to consider that and have a discussion about that as well. So some major issues unfolding in the Senate. Will stay there. All right, we understand from Ashton Mara, our reporter on the Senate floor right now, that many Democrats are calling this a bad precedent for the Senate, that it is unprecedented. Quote, this means the committees mean nothing when the entire Senate can discharge a bill from a committee. The Democrats are saying this is unprecedented. Ashton also says any bill can be defeated and pulled to the floor and put to a vote, even if it's defeated in committee. So many wrinkles to iron out here in regards to the charter schools bill in the Senate. We'll keep you up to date as soon as we have more information. Now back to the Senate. And Ashton Mara continues to report from the Senate floor that the majority's opinion is the body is always in charge of the bill. That is, the Senate is always in charge of the bill. And what a committee does with it is only a recommendation. And that's true. In legislative language, it is put as the Senate Finance Committee recommends the bill do pass and be reported to the Senate floor and recommended that it do pass. But Senator Snyder is calling this unprecedented. Senator Unger is telling people on the floor this sets a bad precedent for the Senate. Let's go back to the Senate.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. The senator from Jackson.
Move the previous question.
The senator from Jackson moves previous question. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare the motion adopted. All those in favor of, state your point.
Mr. President, state the question we're actually going to vote on.
question is shall the decision of the chair be sustained? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine, ascertain the results on this question. 18 yeas, 16 nays, 0 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the decision of the chair sustained.
And you can tell that vote right along party lines, 18 to 16. The Democrats are trying to stop the charter schools bill. The Republicans want it, so let's listen into the Senate.
The Committee on Finance be discharged from further consideration of committee substitute for Senate Bill 14, and the bill be placed on first reading. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Division has been demanded by the senator from Marshall. All those in favor of the motion will please stand. All those in favor, please stand. Be seated. Those opposed will please stand. Be seated. The vote being 18 in favor and 16 opposed, more than a majority of those having voted in the affirmative, I declare the motion adopted. The bill will be ordered to first reading. Petitions.
I have a petition presented by Senator Noe from K.A. Hammonds and 2 other Pleasants County residents.
All right. As the Senate continues to do business, I'm sure there will be more floor speeches in the remarks by members section about this issue in the Senate. But for now, the House is still working its calendar, so let's check in with the House and see what issue they're talking about now.
Okay. From Schedule 3 up to Schedule 2. That way, not anyone could just prescribe them. There's limits on how much you can prescribe for those.
Okay, so for the physician assistants and stuff, this will not allow them to prescribe these drugs, correct?
That would not. The bill we passed last week extended back to the 3 days, the 72 hours that they were removed from because of this bill.
Okay, thank you.
Gentleman from the 19th, Delegate Perdue.
The gentleman yield.
Gentleman yield. Gentleman yields.
Mr. Chairman, how to characterize this? The practice that was engaged before the federal government did what they did, okay, it incorporated what we're trying to do today. We're trying to get back to being able to do essentially what we've been doing for a very long period of time. Is that correct?
To some extent.
Yes, and certainly to some extent. You also suggested in your delivery of the discussion there that it was going to keep the NPLEX system until 2017. Was that really necessary?
It was going to expire this year.
Was it going to expire this year? Okay. I'm sorry. I thought it expired next year. Okay. Thank you very much.
Are there other members desiring to speak to passage of the bill? Not the question before the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, 99 ayes, 0 nays, 1 member absent not voting. Majority of members present having voted the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk Clerk, please report the title.
House Bill 2733.
And that was House Bill 2733, removing certain combinations of drugs containing hydrocodone from the Schedule 3 of the Controlled Substances Law. Coming up next, House Bill 2879, relating to certain limitations on the amount of state funds on deposit in any depository. Let's listen in.
Delegate Walters to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've been waiting 20 years to do this. This bill is good for God's children in the state of West Virginia, and I urge passage. The purpose of the bill is to allow our municipalities, our state government, and our county governments to make short-term deposits with the local bank. Currently, we require local banks in excess of the FDIC limit, which is $250,000, to collateralize 110% of those deposits. Right now, they're charging fees to the municipalities, cities, and states, and they are also not paying them any interest because we're in a low-interest environment. This reduces that collateralization to 102%, which will allow counties, municipalities, and the state of West Virginia to earn interest on their money and have a lower fee charged. As I said, this is good for God's children and the state of West Virginia, and I urge passage.
Are there other members desiring to speak to passage of the bill? If not, the question before the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, 99 ayes, 0 nays, 1 member absent not voting. Majority of members present having voted the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
House Bill 2879.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk, will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 175.
Gentleman from the 58th, Delegate Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right, we're back in the Senate now because the House has taken care of all the bills that were up for passage, but the Senate is now taking up their calendar. Let's listen in and see where they are.
Was associated with government-sponsored program or with a litigation settlement. The bill also allows an exception for the bar on balloon mortgage payments if it is a government-sponsored program, and to the bar on loans that require terms of repayment and do not result in continuous monthly reduction in the original principal amount of the loan. I urge support of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill? Is there discussion? The Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move pursuant to Rule 43 of the Rules of the Senate to be excused from voting on this measure.
The Senator from Morgan moves that he be excused from voting on all questions regarding Senate Bill 285. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Senator from Morgan is excused from voting on all questions regarding Senate Bill 285. Question is on the junior senator from the 13th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I demand the constitutional reading of the bill in accordance with Article 6, Section 29 of the Constitution.
And you could see Senator Bob Beach, a Democrat, has asked that the bill, Senate Bill 285, relating to primary and subordinate mortgage loans, be read in its entirety. This is used as a maneuver to slow anything down or to kind of tell the Senate that you're angry about something. And I think the Democrats are pretty angry about this charter schools bill being placed on first reading and taken out of the hands of the Senate Finance Committee. So the Senator Beach has asked for the bill to be read in its entirety. Let's see how it's handled on the Senate floor and go back there.
Junior Senator from the 13th, the bill's already been read a third time. The question's on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question is, before the Senate, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Junior Senator from the 13th. Junior Senator from the 13th. Has every member voted? If so, clerk, close machine, ascertain the results. On this question, 28 yeas, 5 nays, 0 absent, not voting, 1 excused. More than a majority of those present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk has a title amendment.
The Committee on Banking and Insurance moved to amend the title of the bill.
The Senator from Wood.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to withdraw the title amendment.
Senator from Wood requests unanimous consent to withdraw the title amendment from the Committee on Banking and Insurance. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The title amendment is withdrawn. The clerk has another title amendment.
The Committee on the Judiciary moved to amend the title of the bill.
The question is on the adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Senator Bob Beach had asked for that bill to be read in its entirety. However, he was a little too late because the clerk had read the bill number and the short title of the bill. It had been read a third time. Therefore, Mr. Beach was just a little too late. Now, here is something to watch for. There are 36 bills on second reading, and Senator Beach or any member of the Senate could ask for all of those bills to be read in their entirety at second reading. That could slow down the Senate quite a bit. It shows the disfavor for something the Senate has done. So we'll keep an eye out for that to see what else. There are a couple of other bills on the Senate calendar coming up here relating to licenses for businesses of currency exchange, the Governor's Committee on Crime, Delinquency, and Correction, the regional jail excess funds. These are all just kind of financial bills, but they could make for some drama on the Senate floor if indeed they are read in their entirety. So let's go back to the Senate and see how this unfolds.
The Senator from Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in recess until 1 p.m. today.
The Senator from Jackson moves the Senate stand in recess until 1 p.m. today. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote nay. The ayes have it. I declare the Senate in recess till 1 o'clock.
Well, you can see the Senate decided to suspend business, maybe take a breather, take a break, let tempers kind of get down from the floor, and they've decided to recess. No debate on the recess, nothing like that. It is just walk away and walk away. So this is going to be interesting to see. They'll come back at 1 o'clock. We will end this broadcast at 1 o'clock, but you can go to the West Virginia Legislature's website, click on the Senate video streaming, and you can see it all unfold there. So the House is still in session. They are on second reading bills. And let's go to the House right now. It looks like they're having a conference there at the Speaker's podium. Something must be amiss. Something must need to be discussed up there between all the committee chairs, the minority leader, the majority leader. We'll see what bill they're working on and get back to you with that as soon as we can.
To the members, the fundamental purpose of the bill before us is to clarify language relating to the graduation requirements for eligibility for Promise Scholarship. The amendment would create a new group of individuals who are not currently eligible for Promise under the existing law, and would now be eligible regardless of those graduation requirements. So for that reason, it's a ruling of the chair that the amendment is not germane to the fundamental purpose of the bill. Further amendments?
Microphone.
718.
That was House Bill 2674, making homeschooled students eligible for a Promise Scholarship without taking the GED test. That moves to third reading. Now we're on 2718. This has to do with the Racetrack Modernization Fund and closing that fund. Let's go to the House.
From 58, Delegate Bowles.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to advance the bill to third reading with amendments pending and the restricted rate to offer an amendment, a joint amendment on third reading by the gentleman from the 35th, Chairman Nelson, and the gentleman from the 19th, Delegate Perdue.
Jump from the 58th, ask unanimous consent that the bill be advanced with amendments pending and the restricted right to offer an additional amendment by the gentleman from the 35th, Delegate Nelson, and the gentleman from the 19th, Delegate Perdue. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The bill will be so advanced.
Okay.
Further bills.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2773.
Are there amendments? Not the bill be advanced to engrossment. Gentleman from 58.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent the bill lie over and retain its place on the calendar.
Gentleman from the 58th asks unanimous consent the bill lie over and retain its place on the calendar. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The bill will lie over and retain its place on the calendar.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2778, State Infrastructure Fund Program.
Are there amendments?
No.
Not the bill be advanced to engrossment in third reading.
House Bill 2820, relating to affirmative defenses against mechanics liens.
Are there amendments?
The Committee on Judiciary moves to amend the bill. On page 3, Section 21, line 32, immediately following the words "wish to," by striking the words "preserve their mechanics lien rights pursuant to this article," and inserting in lieu thereof the following: to avoid affirmative defenses provided pursuant to this section and subsection C of section 34 of this article.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 27th. The gentleman from 27th asks unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The gentleman from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is an amendment to the mechanics lien bill, which basically seeks to shift the responsibility for determining the creditworthiness of a contractor from the homeowner to the party dealing with the contractor. The Judiciary Committee is seeking to amend the bill basically by making it clear that there is an ability to preserve your mechanics lien rights against the affirmative defenses by providing notice to the owner of their rights and their liabilities in connection with the mechanics lien. We've also, in the amendment, redefined and combined the definition of a dwelling and a residence to include the outbuildings such as a garage or a shop or shed, barn or stable. I urge adoption of the amendment.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the adoption of the amendment? The gentleman from the 50th, Delegate Manchin.
I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman yield?
The gentleman yield? The gentleman yields.
Yes.
I apologize. I got to it late, and I can't figure out whether this is the actual amendment that we adopted in the committee or
Yes.
whether you're making a further change.
No, this is the committee amendment, and there is another amendment pending, but this is the one the committee passed.
Thank you.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments?
Delegate Foster moves to amend the bill on page 3, line 5, after the word above.
The gentleman from the 15th asks unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The gentleman from the 15th.
It's on page 3, line 5, and right now what's required in the bill is for somebody who purchases, or whenever the product is sold, or my question is for the supplier, but then also the contractor, and they can retain the rights of the lien. But in order to do that, they have to supply a letter, a certified letter, and also it's not an or, it's an and, by posting in a conspicuous place on the job site a notice of intention to preserve the mechanic's liens rights. And what I'm proposing is to remove the posting in a conspicuous place on a job site, because if you're already providing a certified letter, then I believe it's unnecessary to also post on a job site, and in many cases it would be very difficult to do so, such as if it was a customer picked up the products at the site and the site may be many miles away, 2-3 hours trip. So, thank you.
Jump from the 27th, Delegate Schott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The proposed amendment has, I think, correctly identified a weakness in the bill, probably an impracticality in many cases, in that it requires that, for instance, a material supplier to actually go to the site where the materials are supplied, which may be close but may be many, many miles away, and the material supplier may not even know where the location of the materials are to be incorporated into the structure. The purpose of the change in the law was to give the homeowner adequate notice, and the only way that the mechanic's lien, the person who claims a mechanic's lien, can prove that is by having a signed receipt for the certified mail, which should be sufficient. So I see no harm that's done by this amendment. I think the purpose of the bill is still preserved with the requirement of a certified notice, notice sent by certified mail, and therefore I recommend approval of the amendment.
Are there further members desiring to speak to the amendment? Gentleman from the 50th, Delegate Manchin.
Thank you. Would my esteemed chairman yield?
Gentleman yield? Gentleman yields.
I'm having trouble pulling up all of the language in the bill, otherwise I would look it up myself. I don't recall whether we required a signed receipt on the certified mail or whether we just required that it be sent certified mail. Do you have a recollection of that?
The language of the bill said, shall serve notice by certified mail on the owner of the property as defined in subsection B above. And subsection B basically describes the owner. I think the burden of proof of service would be upon the person claiming the mechanic's lien, and the only real convincing way to prove that is by a signed receipt. But as far as specifically requires a signed receipt, it does not in the statute. But I think in terms of practicality, it'd be difficult to prove service without the signed receipt.
I guess I'm just aware that there is certain forms of certified mail that don't require a return receipt. And that's my concern, is it just gets sent and there's no signature, and so there's never any proof that they actually received it. And my concern is if we're taking away one additional method of notifying them, such as posting, which I don't disagree with removing that, should we perhaps tighten the other up?
To the gentleman, I would have no objection if you moved for unanimous consent to amend on at this point or on third reading to add to the requirement of a receipt.
And Mr. Speaker, could I in fact request unanimous consent to advance the bill to third with the right of the gentleman of the 27th and my own joint right to amend?
Gentleman gentlemen wish to proceed with the amendment before us and offer an additional amendment, or are you requesting to amend the amendment that's before us?
An additional amendment would be appropriate, I think.
Okay, let's, if we could, just go ahead and discharge this amendment, and then we can take up your amendment. Are there further members desiring to speak to the amendment? If not, the question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the amendment adopted. The gentleman from the 50th asks unanimous consent that the bill be advanced to third with the restricted right of the gentleman from the 50th and the gentleman from the 27th, is that correct, to offer an amendment on third. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The bill be so advanced. Bills on first reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 60, requiring flood handler examinations and cards. Senate Bill 398, extending expiration date for healthcare provider tax on eligible acute care hospitals.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2103, relating generally to boards of examination and registration.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2202, relating to more equitable disbursement of funds to county boards.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2268, removing the severance tax on timber.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2462, relating to certain deposits of tax proceeds.
Bill be advanced.
House Bill 2569, relating to the dealer recovery program.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2571, creating a fund for pothole repair contributed to by private businesses or entities.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2652, reducing the assessment paid by the hospitals to the Healthcare Authority.
Bill be advanced.
House Bill 2657, allowing members of the Livestock Care Standards Board to be reimbursed for expenses consistent with the West Virginia Department of Agriculture travel policy and procedure.
Bill be advanced.
House Bill 2835, reorganizing the Hatfield-McCoy Regional Recreation Authority.
Bill be advanced.
House Bill 2839, eliminating late fees charged by the Secretary of State.
Bill be advanced.
House Bill 2880, creating an addiction treatment pilot program.
Bill be advanced.
House Bill 2888, allowing the use of rotary drum composters to destroy or dispose of the carcass of any animal to prevent the spread of disease.
Bill be advanced.
House Bill 2933, making a supplementary appropriation to the Department of Administration Public Defender Services.
Bill be advanced. Leaves of absence. Gentleman from the 58th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, for our colleague, Delegate Boggs.
Without objection, leave will be granted. Remarks by members of the House. Lady from the 36th, Delegate Guthrie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Had I been present in the chamber last evening, I would have voted no on roll call 172, no on 173, no on 174, yes on 175, yes on 176, yes on 177, yes on 178.
Without objection, the lady's preference will be recorded in the journal. Remarks by members of the House. Miscellaneous business. Gentleman from the 58th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Subject to announcements, I move we recess until 6 p.m. this evening.
Are there announcements? The gentleman from the 11th, Delegate Ashley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a reminder to the members that tomorrow at 9 a.m. the Finance Committee will meet to take up an agenda. Thank you.
The gentleman from the 9th, or gentleman from the 8th, Delegate Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, the Republicans will caucus in the House chamber at 2 p.m.
The gentleman from the 38th, Delegate Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Judiciary Committee will continue meeting this afternoon at 1 p.m. and we'll meet again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. The agenda will be posted for tomorrow morning.
Gentleman from the 61st, Delegate Duke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Committee on Education will meet in the morning, Wednesday, February 25th at 9 a.m. in the
Education
And as the House of Delegates winds up its floor session with announcements of committee meetings for this afternoon and tomorrow, this is where we will leave this live broadcast of the floor sessions of the Senate and House from the state capitol in Charleston. While our broadcast ends here, you can go to the West Virginia Legislature's website and continue to watch there. The Senate is in recess until 1 o'clock, and the House will reconvene at 6 o'clock tonight. And of course, we'll have a complete report of legislative news and information tonight on the Legislature Today at 6:30 on West Virginia Public Broadcasting. Until then, I'm Beth Voorhees. Thanks for joining us. Good afternoon.